Yeah. Every conversation can and will elevate you. It's where real talk meets real growth. Welcome back to Level Up. I'm your host, Hakeem. Today is a very special one. It's the first time I'm talking about this topic, real estate. We're going behind the scenes of real estate, not just buying and selling buildings, but how capital moves, how hospitality assets are viewed, how technology is changing the sector, and what professionals need to understand if they want to grow in this space. Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Hakim. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm really happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Absolute honor and a privilege. I think I said to you previously that I listen to your podcast quite often, even when I'm in the gym. So it's a pleasure
I'm
to be
glad
on.
to hear. I'm glad you are part of it. Really nice. And I'm really excited to unpack a lot of topics really interesting with you. So just in the beginning, people doesn't know you, maybe in my network or other network. Tell us about your journey. How did you get into the real estate space? What led you to Capitan Connect?
Yeah, a bit of an odd one, really. And I think, other people might kind of understand this because I think, in a sense, I kind of fell into real estate and then fell in love with real estate, if that makes sense. So I had quite a different career path. So I started off in law and did all my qualifications to become a lawyer. And then I started working in a law firm. So I was working on the private client side. Doing trust and estates work, so writing wills, lasting powers of attorneys, writing trusts into contracts, so and so. And I thought it was going to be like Suits before I qualified, not gonna lie. So I was like kind of excited. And no offense to people that I work with because they're all lovely and extremely good at what they do, but it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't what I thought it was. And I'm quite entrepreneurial. I mean, my dad had me on market stalls when I was about 5 years old, selling conkers and bits and bobs and car boots and all that jazz. So I've got quite an entrepreneurial spirit. So I wanted a bit of a career change. And I also wanted to move to London. I'm originally from Manchester. I don't know if my accent kind of puts that across. Put some subtitles up, Hakim, just in case. So I got into executive search and helping people build teams, basically, but it was purely on the investment side. So we would bring in investment analysts, we'd bring in investment directors, and that would be both for private equity firms, investment banks, and pretty sector agnostic across real estate, asset classes. And then we'd also do the same on the development side as well. So we'd work with KSL Capital Partners, Starwood, Tristan Capital, and then a lot of developers as well. So they're big brands. And it was amazing. It was such a learning curve. 3 different companies. I moved from consultant up to director level, got quite a not to be egotistic, but I'd say a decent name for myself. I'm still getting people messaging me all the time about it. And I have to say to them, look, I'm not in that space anymore. Sorry. But, the good thing is when you're speaking to investment directors or, you're looking to grow these teams, you really need to know, okay, on the investment side, how much dry powder do they have to deploy? How does this company operate? How do they actually deploy this capital? What do they underwrite? How do they underwrite it? And then on the development side as well, how are we actually going to execute this? And why have we chosen to develop in this particular sector, for example? So you get to really learn the ropes. And one thing that led me to Capitan Connect was I just saw that there was a couple of things kind of broken in the system, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is, you'd speak to investors and they would say, look, we keep getting sent things by, let's say, brokers all the time that are just not what we're looking for. They haven't really done their due diligence. And then we'd speak to developers, or I'm also on the prop tech side as well now and hotel tech side. I'm sure we'll touch upon that later.
Yeah.
But, they'd say, well, we're not being properly represented here because we're having brokers say to us, look, we can introduce you to investors, but we're not really getting anything back, if that makes sense. And what I found was the kind of model at the moment, which is kind of why brokers get quite a bad rap, I must say. And what they're doing is they're taking on a mandate or a project without really fully understanding it, right? And they will fire it off into the wilderness to 100 investors, 200 investors, and they just see what sticks, right? And once again, investors are getting 100 emails a day with stuff that isn't relevant to them. And then, we're getting no traction or no capital raising or funding through the door. So I thought, okay, how are we going to go about fixing this? So what we do is, which is why I'd say I'm not a broker, I'm more a capital advisor, let's say. is we get pitched on a project. It could be a hotel development, it could be a refurb, it could be an asset light strategy. On the prop tech side, it could be a startup that's looking to raise Series A funding or something like that. We get sent the data rooms, the financial models, the pitch decks, and we tear them to shreds. Tear them to shreds. We always say beforehand, look, we're going to be quite blunt with you here, maybe ask some uncomfortable questions, but they're all going to be questions that a serious investor would ask, right? And then, we work with the developer, we work with the founder, get all of those questions answered. And then at that point, if we can make some introductions to, let's say, 3, 4, 5 investors max that are going to be suited and very well tailored to, the project that's on hand, then that's what we do. And it's kind of, it's developing that trust with the developer or the founder. It's also developing the trust that we have with our investors. And once again, that could be institutional capital, could be a family office, could be a high net worth individual or a venture firm. We're getting that trust because we're sending them things that are actually well suited, right?
That's really good to hear. So you
That's
kind
the
of
difference.
answered my second question. I wanted to ask, like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? But from understanding is like there's a lot of sort of chaos on both sides, and you're trying to make it easy for the investors, but also for operator hotels. Or is that correct?
You're exactly right, and it needs to be that way because the market now in real estate is very different to what it was just 3 years ago, right? And that's the thing, materials cost more, labor costs more, rates have gone up, so it's a lot more expensive to develop now, and that means when things are expensive to develop, normally that the impact of that is, well, we need to charge people higher rent on the residential side or even the commercial side, or we need to charge in a hotel, we need to charge our customers, higher rates for the rooms just in order to get that profitability back, right?
Yeah.
So it's a strange sort of market to be in right now, and I think that's causing a lot of investors at whatever level to be a lot more stricter and a lot more diligent before they press that play
Yeah,
button.
yeah. I fully agree on that. And it's also nice to get maybe a little bit deep dive into that with you, of course, how real estate really works. A lot of people, maybe including myself, outside the industry of a real estate, think real estate is just a location, building, and transaction. From your perspective, how does the real estate world actually work, and what is behind the scene?
I mean, I could be super, super nerdy and talk about that for a very long time, but what I'll do is I'll try and strip it back right to its core, I guess, just in case, you have audience members that don't know too much about real estate. But I think I completely agree. I think most people think real estate is about the property. I would say it's not really. I'd say, it's basically a capital allocation business, is what I would say, that happens to use buildings as a vessel, so you have enormous pools of money. Maybe it's a pension fund, maybe it's sovereign wealth funds or a family office, and they've got one fundamental problem: where are we going to put this money, right? And real estate just happens to be one of those asset classes where they can absorb millions of dollars or pounds or euros, but you can still produce a predictable income on the other side, let's
Mm,
say. So it's a safe bet to a point, which I might get people in real estate commenting, disagreeing with that. But what I mean is, you can do enough underwriting to say, okay, we have a bit of an idea that we can make if everything touch wood goes well, we can make a profit here, right? So the buildings basically exist just because the capitals need a home, I would say.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
wouldn't really say the other way around. I'd say a lot of it is also relationship driven. I'd say the people making the serious money aren't the people reading, about a deal on the news or on LinkedIn or whatever. They're people that have built the relationships, and, they found these opportunities and these good opportunities about 6 months, a year, 2 years prior. So it's very relationship heavy. And then underneath every deal as well, you've got that kind of invisible capital structure, let's say. So senior debt, mezzanine, preferred equity, different investors with different risk appetite, all stacked on the same asset. So, it might look like there's one owner, but it's actually often like six pieces of different claims on the same income stream, let's say. It's all, and then you need to all piece that together with trust. You know, the investor has to trust the developer.
of course.
The developer, especially in this market, needs to trust the operator, and the investor then has to ensure that the developer does trust the operator, right? So everything kind of has to fit together with that trust.
Yeah, it's all about relationship. I do
Yeah,
agree on that. I think it's the secret ingredient. If not the most important one actually in that field, but or any other field as well, in hospitality and everywhere, I think. So we're talking about hospitality a little bit, of course, with the hotels, which is really, of course, interesting. And I think also for you, because you are into that space more, you have shown interest in hotels and hospitality space. What makes hospitality real estate different from other assets in the market, for example?
I'll start this off on a personal note. I just love people in the space. I think that's the thing. And I think, look, I'm doing a talk in November on data centers, for example. It's a massive thing right now. And, we're looking at signing with I think I told you before this podcast, a big multi-family developer in the US to help them find LPs.
Nice.
But, you know, in hospitality, you speak to people, whether it's people on the investment side, whether it's a hospitality developer or operator, they just have that passion. You speak to them, they're excited about the project. You speak to people on the operations side, they're excited to speak to their customers and make their customers have a better experience and a better journey, and you don't necessarily get that kind of passion all of the time. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some
That's
people out there that bloody love industrial logistics and letting them enjoy that, but the passion really shines through. And I think also what's quite exciting is not necessarily if I say the word hotels, but if I say the word hospitality, it's linking into other real estate asset classes as well. And I
fair.
don't know if you've seen this, if you've seen this, Hakim, but when I went to university, my student accommodation was basically like living in a ghetto. It was intense. You would have thought they could probably do a documentary on Channel 4 about the the student accommodation that I lived in. But I'll give you a good example. I went for a tour around Downing Group, which is a PBSA developer in the north. They're based in Liverpool in the UK. And I went for a tour around their new accommodation in Manchester, the think it's called Square Gardens. And I tell you what, Hakim, it was literally like walking around a hotel. It was student accommodation that had co-working, it had a gym, it had a
Nice.
theatre room, a golf simulator, and a lot of student accommodation is ending up like that. And a lot of residential is leaking into that as well.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, so
correct.
I think that's why I like it, is because it's starting to leak into different areas of real estate. And I think it's the only asset class that seems to be doing that. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. We're gonna come later into more details on that as well. I would be interested to learn more from you. But my next question is, when investors look at hotels, service apartment, branded residence, or living concepts, what are they are trying to evaluate first?
I mean, it's always going to be about a clear exit for an investor,
Mm,
what their return on investment's going to be. But I think the models are changing ever so slightly. Like I touched upon before, there's just less ground up development now. And if there is any form of development, most of the time, big things are they'll look at underperforming offices and they'll flip that into a hotel, for example. So they're not doing the ground up development, they're just doing a massive refurb. But one thing we're seeing massively is the asset light strategies, right? I think I spoke to you about that
yeah.
earlier. And that's just a whole kind of different kettle of fish, because investors really like that downside protection of having the bricks and mortar, let's say, of acquiring an asset. So if anything goes wrong, there's a bit of that downside protection. There's a little bit less risk because at least we can do something else with the building, or we can sell and dispose of the building. When it comes to an asset light strategy, I mean, fine, you're kind of taking away the cost elements because it's a little bit cheaper to do, of course. But there's also, there's a bit more risk on the investor because it's, I think I touched on this when I spoke to you before we did the podcast just a moment ago. What you have is a concept, right? And if you don't have a track record of, okay, we've executed these asset light strategies before, we have a team around us that has a decent amount of experience in doing this, maybe at a bigger brand, whether it's, I don't know, Accor or Mandarin Oriental or Marriott, whatever it may be, then there's not that track record. Do we have LOIs already in place where we say, okay, we found the right building that fits for us and doesn't just fit for us, but fits the brand that we're looking to build
Mm,
here, And if you don't have those things in place and you don't have a clear exit strategy or a clear, stack of numbers or financial model that really shows to an investor, okay, I can make some money back here, and we have a strong operator in place, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but that's
yeah,
becoming the big thing.
the most
Can
important.
is that the most important? Can the operator really add value and keep this revenue stream coming, and not
Yeah.
just within the flagship, but if we, start to open up elsewhere, can we keep that consistent? And if we don't have all of these factors in place, you do literally just have a concept, and it's a lot harder to find investment, I would say, from my experience, in an asset light strategy if you don't have those things in place. They're really crucial.
I definitely agree on that, especially when it comes to the consistency and the brand and the experience and the operator. I think because the competition is so high right now, there's so many operators who are doing great job. So if you are really building something new, I think it's really difficult to come in that market, in that industry right now. But there's also a way. But like you said, if you have all this already really clear structure of all of this information, I think you got a shot, definitely.
But I think that that also kind of comes into why sometimes people find it a lot harder to raise money. And we've kind of talked about that a second ago, where, investors are being a lot more diligent, and they're being a lot stricter, and they're asking for a lot more information before they press the invest button. But yeah, I think a lot of people, like, we hear pitches all the time. I think I did a post about it not too long ago, where I had 4 different meetings with 4 different founders that had a asset light strategy concept in their head, but they didn't have those key fundamentals in place. And the way in which we do our business at Capitan is we say no to about 80% of the stuff that we get pitched on, and not in a rude way. It's not, okay, I think your idea is rubbish, go away. It's more, I don't think your idea is ready yet. And that's the key thing, is, maybe the numbers don't quite stack up to what an investor's appetite would look like. Maybe LOIs or certain assets haven't been found and haven't been put in place yet, and those different factors. So a lot of people are finding it quite hard to raise, just because, honestly, and this can be on the tech side as well, they're just not out of position yet. And they think, okay, I've got this idea in my head. I'll create a pretty pitch deck on Canva or whatever, and I'm sure an investor's going to be interested. But it's just not the case, because, like you said, it's such a saturated market. It's so competitive. You need to have everything so structurally sound and ready. And investors are now looking at not just, the underwriting stuff, but they're looking at lot of, what's happening inside a hotel too. So I think I was saying to you, we've just pitched with, I won't mention the name, but we just pitched with quite a big
Yeah,
PM.
special exclusive.
Yeah, listen, I'd love to do it exclusive, but until we get a contract signed, I'll be plastering it all over the place. But we picked with quite a big PMS company not too long ago, in regards to perhaps integrating an investment layer to their dashboard, right? Because, when we're speaking to investors right now, it's not just, okay, how's the hotel performing, in the market in general, or whatever you can perhaps get on CoStar or STR, that kind of data. It's now, okay, what's happening within these 4 walls? And, is there a level of seasonality to the branding? And what's the level of customer service look like? Is there repeat occupancy rate? Even down to how well is your F&B performing? And a lot of the really internal operation stuff is a lot of data that even investors are looking at now, just
Yeah.
to see whether it can be repeated, whether it's worth the time in investing in this brand and growing it. So I think it would make sense for a PMS, or, whoever's collecting that data, to have something in place where an independent hotel owner, for example, can filter through that data and create or export, let's say, like a quite a detailed and factually correct one pager that could sit alongside their pitch deck, or sit alongside the other information that's needed.
That's really good to hear. And I wanted to also, since we spoke about how difficult right now to sort of raise, what like important things for a hotel operator or somebody want to raise right now that has to be, priority to change today to help them raise? What in your mind, in your experience?
I think we've kind of already touched upon it. I think it's just going back to those fundamentals, right? Of, do I have a clear strategy in place? And am I in that position to go to an investor and say, look, we can realistically execute this? Because, if there's missing things in there, then an investor's going to pick up on that instantly. So you need to make sure, okay, have I covered all of my bases? Are we ready to, once we get this money, we can hit the play button? So I think, that think in a way that's kind of already been answered, because I don't think there's anything else apart from just being properly ready, because the money's there. Like I say, it's not a case. I think people think, oh, we're struggling to find investment because there's no money, and it's just not true. It's just people are being way more selective with their
Of
money.
course, yeah, of
So
course.
we
Yeah,
so we need
especially
to
nowadays, yeah.
yeah, we need to stand out. And I think, I think I mentioned before, we started to take on a few prop tech and hotel tech startups, right? And I don't know how often you go to conferences these days. So we go to Prop Tech Connect or No Vacancy, UK Reef, Annual Hospitality. I think we even went to Blueprint in Vegas. I've been and done that. And it's kind of mind blowing and a little bit scary because it's such a competitive thing on the prop tech
Yes,
and hotel tech
yes.
side. I would be so scared. Or not, okay, maybe scared's the wrong word, but I'd be so overwhelmed if I was a hotel owner that, maybe I was running a little bit behind when it comes to integrating tech or AI into my hotel. And then I went to one of these conferences and was like, my God, there's so many companies here that do the same thing,
Yeah,
let's say,
yeah.
but claim that they're better than the rest. And it's how do we evaluate that? And it's kind of a bit scary. I mean, there's even companies now that we've been pitched on where all they're doing is they're wrapping, let's say, third party prop tech softwares or tech stacks, and they're wrapping it into one big thing to provide to a client. So it's like the market's so saturated. So one thing that we say to a lot of people on the prop tech and hotel tech side is quite a simple question, and it's kind of taking people back a bit, and it's surprising how many people can't answer it, is what are you actually looking to solve? And that's the thing. It's like, what pain points have you targeted,
Yes,
and
correct.
how are you building this in order to tackle and relieve those pain points? And that could be on the operational side, that could be on, providing software or tech that helps with underwriting, whatever it may be. How are we tackling these pain points? What value are you really adding here that nobody else is? Or are you doing this because you see everyone else building something similar
You take a
and
piece of the pie, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Right. And I think even speaking to investors, and that could be on the venture side, it could be an angel investor that's interested in prop tech or hotel tech, whatever it may be, or even a family office that's interested, they're really seeing or being presented with so many prop tech and hotel tech solutions that all do the same thing. And it's no, not interested. We've seen that before. We've seen that before, but maybe wrapped up a little bit differently, you know.
Yeah.
So you really need to stand out. So the biggest thing in order to do that is, okay, what are the pain points that you're looking to get rid of, and how are you achieving that compared to other people? And if you find that gap in the market,
Go for it. Yeah, yeah,
amazing,
yeah, yeah. Go for
amazing.
it. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree. Whoa, that's a lot of insights here.
A lot of information, Hacker. I'm sorry. I have
No, I love it. I love it. That's the reason why I'm doing that. I want to get all these insights outside. What makes and from we spoke about the problem and what is going on, what's happening in the market in real estate. So I think it's an interesting one for me. What makes an investor or founder of real estate business right now attractive to capital? Yeah, you spoke about the value and what they can bring, but I think it's not only that. It can also have something else more into growth or I don't know, but in your experience, what do you think about that?
Once again, I think it's just a level of consistency. Like I say, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on operators right now to be able to operate and execute well. I think, there's a really big thing at the moment in regards to experiences. And I think that's kind of, in a sense, why branded residencies, for example, is doing quite well,
Hmm.
is because there is that kind of or even a branded hotel, let's say, for example, there is that kind of level of experience there of, oh, we're staying in a Bulgari hotel, or oh, we're staying in a Lamborghini residency, or whatever it may be, and people want a little bit more. There's also, there's a really big thing right now in community driven hospitality.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we were speaking to someone the other day that set up in Germany that set up a glamping company, but he's very relationship and community driven, right? So
Nice.
he also kind of has a tech stack that sits along it, or an app, let's say, where people can pay a monthly fee and they get invited to one-off events. They get a little bit of discount even on their stays, and there's a lot more of a community feel around it. Now, that's actually kind of weirdly helped that company that I was speaking to with their investment strategy, because they've kind of implemented their community into investing in them, which is pretty cool to me because it's, you know, he was saying when I was speaking to him, like, look, we've asked our community, if you're really enjoying what we're providing here, we're looking to expand. We're giving you the opportunity to go on this journey with us and invest and, whether that's they set up an SPV or whatever way they go about it, right? And they target quite a premium market, I'd say, so they have the money to do it. But, and in return of this investment, we're going to give you exclusive access to, certain assets that we have on our portfolio or certain exclusive events or whatever that may be. Now, that's great for an investor in one regard because they're seeing, wow, the community has really enjoyed the experiences that this brand has created and is providing. They're getting enough backing from their customer base. There's definitely something here for us to invest in, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's really changing. Hospitality is changing, especially in hotels, like you said, also with a lot of interest into make it more of a community experience, not only just this hotel room that you stay in and that's it, but it's just become more than that. And we have been seeing, and especially in hospitality, a lot of new brands are coming and growing because of that reason, because there is a demand for it. Like, I think if your thing about business travel is definitely changing. People who traveled for years and years and years, stayed, for example, in all of these big brands, they have now an appetite to try something different. It's a kind of a big debate because a lot of course, people still want to collect the points from the loyalty program of hotel or something like that. But also there's a lot of young travelers who really want to try something else and also want to get this community sort of experience and not just the room. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. And it's quite interesting because we touched upon hotel tech and then we've touched upon the kind of human and community aspect and experience aspect of hospitality. And that's kind of something that I'm excited to see moving forward because I think, in a sense, in my opinion, there's a bit of a war happening here, kind of in a way,
It
because
is.
like it's great that we're integrating tech and AI into hospitality operations, so things can be a lot more streamlined. Things can be, and that cuts costs and sort of increases appetite for investors as well. Let's say, just to keep it on that subject. But, there's a fine balance between I went and stayed at a hotel in Italy not too long ago, and I walked in, I checked in on an app on my phone. I went to my hotel room, didn't have a key. I had to open my hotel room on my phone once again. And then the next day I checked out on my phone. I didn't see a single person. And I think there's a fine balance here and it's something that I'm really interested in seeing in the future is because that would really appeal to a businessman or woman, right? Someone who is just there to go to a conference, go to a meeting, doesn't need necessarily that much of an experience. For me, even though I was there for a meeting, granted, I wasn't a fan of it because I really like that thing of being greeted when I open the hotel door. Is there anything I can do for you? Here's your key. I kind of like that. Even if it's a fob or something, I kind of like that. Pressing it on the door and getting excited to open it and then checking out and someone saying, hope you had a great stay. When are we going to see you again? And I'd love those human touches. So
Yeah.
there's kind of a war going on. Well, it's not a war, but like there's two separate sides that are growing at the minute. There's that streamlined AI integrated point that I've just mentioned here going into hotels. And then there's also
Digital experience. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's that opposite side of experiences, and they're both kind of going like that. So
There is, I fully agree. There is demand for both. There's still a lot of people still want to talk to somebody or, have this conversation. You're absolutely right. I think like this myself as well, especially if I'm going with a family somewhere, of course, it's always nice to have these conversations. The other part is also our, like, is increasing as well with a lot of hotels that's, kind of implementing the digital experience. I work myself, of course, in Cincinnati, and it
you
was
did, yeah.
kind of mix of both. What really helped that time, because it was back in COVID time when COVID hit, because the hotel had the capability and operation wise, PMS wise, everything was kind of suited or capable to serve that digital experience. The M hotels were one of the few stayed open all over COVID time. So because you could go check in, check out don't talk to anybody, don't touch anything, but still the human element was there, and that really was really one of the great examples. But other brands as well are going fully, digital, like Bob W. Yeah, yeah, exactly, and they are doing great, and they're growing as well, and because that piece also, especially like you said, and I agree, for business traveler, somebody who's attending a conference, coming for a long day, just want to go to the room directly, don't want to stay, spend time, checking in or checking out, all that. So it's a war. This is the truth. It's the truth. But really nice, good to hear. We spoke about tech, we spoke about AI. I want to come a little bit close to that, and I know you have been close to that direction as well yourself. So I know from fact a lot about, of course, AI and hospitality and travel and all that, but real estate, I have no idea. So what technology are actually changing real estate and that we should get to know about, or from your own experience?
I think once again, it's always going to be on that. Well, it's kind of split into those two parts, right? There's that operational aspect and, and streamlining and making things easier to operate and manage. And that's not just on the hotel side, even though we've discussed a lot about that today. But, it's even on the side of residential or someone that owns, let's say, it's a landlord and owns HMOs, right? There's being tech that's being created. I know this because I spoke to a few people not too long ago that are looking to build it, and that, you're able to easily manage, what rooms in your HMO are occupied right now, which aren't, what are the bills in certain units that you have, what are they looking like, and when is the rent due, who's paid the rent, and making things really, really easy on the kind of, let's say, one desktop app or phone app, right? So things are making it really easier to manage on, let's say, the operational side of asset management, I would.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So yeah, and that's going to be the same across the board in PBSA or whatever, at most different asset classes. And then I think another thing that comes into play is underwriting. So, and I'm kind of on the fence about this. Once again, I spent quite a few years on the exec search side. So when it comes to hiring, I'm kind of quite passionate about that as well, even though it's not something that I do anymore. And that's, when it comes to underwriting, it's amazing that you can use AI to take a lot of data and, condense that down into something very easy to read and easy to manage on the financial modeling side. The issue of that comes with that is, in the future, are you going to need an analyst in your team? Really?
Yeah.
Because I've hired a lot of analysts, and most of the time what they're doing is underwriting. So you speak to people from Greystar, you speak to people from Moda, whatever company it may be, and you speak to an analyst, and or you speak to someone that's looking to hire an analyst, and they need to have really good financial modeling skills. They need to be able to build a model from scratch. They need to be able to understand promotes and waterfalls, and they need to be able to wrap that up into a really good and clear, precise investment memorandum that we can then pitch to the board or pitch to our shareholders. But if you can get AI that can do that in about 10 minutes, you no longer really need an analyst. So that's my kind of worry, is it's going to be really difficult for people to graduate out of university. Not to scare people off, by the way, it's just my thoughts. It's going to be really difficult to get people from graduating university to then, well, it's like, well, do we need to hire an investment analyst because we've got this AI that does it? And we only really need an investment director, or let's say an investment manager, to double check that the AI's done its job properly and then physically present it to the board. It's a tough thing, but I'm also seeing that on the operational side in hospitality as well. It's like, well, do we need people sat at the desk now to check you in?
Yeah, it's
You
true.
know, so
It's already happening. Yeah.
it's already happening, and it's, how do we balance this? How do we encourage people to get into hospitality out of university, or get into real estate investment, or, get into development, if a lot of AI is taking away the main aspects of the job that they'd be doing after they've graduated, if that makes sense. So it's a worry of mine.
It is, absolutely, and there's a lot of debate, a lot of podcasts and shows talks about that, and the truth is that there will be jobs that will disappear the next couple of years. That's absolutely not going to change, unfortunately. and it will impact, of course, a lot of people, but also there will be a lot of new jobs gonna definitely also evolve as well, especially with technology and AI. And not everyone, of course, is gonna be into that. I'm personally in the middle. I love AI. I use AI every day in everything I do, of course, but also in the same time, I hate the part that is gonna, kind of eliminate the human interaction in the industry, in hospitality, but also in another. And I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's
Well,
not
that's
good.
the thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's an interesting one, but that's why I'm kind of happy on the hospitality side, let's say, that those experience-driven, those experience-driven brands and those community-driven brands are thriving, and they are of great appetite right now. Because I think that is kind of, it's balancing out this need and growth of AI, but it's also showing that we still need and we're still hungry for the human touch.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question. It's in the end, especially in that industry, it's all about the human connection that always wins, in every single experience, every single hotel stay, every single phone call or email. It's all about the human connection. So I agree with you, and that's definitely will not be replaced whatsoever by AI. Yeah, it can be eliminated in some cases, some departments, but it will never replace, I hope, the human connection as well. We spoke about relationships and trust, and especially in your sector, I think it's a key, and I think it's really important because the real estate is such a relationship-driven industry. What have you learned about building trust and opening doors?
You know what? My entire company that I've been building is based on trust. That is it, really. My whole ethos is based on trust, and we pride ourselves on trust that much that everything that we do, we never work a retained model. We do everything on a success and outcome basis. So we put all of the pressure on ourselves, and we trust our relationship with our investors and our developers and operators are of such a great level, right? And that needs to be done as well because it's quite interesting. We get pitched on things all the time, and there's always people that need capital, right? There's always ideas, there's always projects, there's always, real estate assets that are for sale that people want to buy. But, where the trust really lies is your relationship with investors. And when it comes to institutional capital or it comes to family offices, I know from my own experience that it takes a long time to build those relationships, but can take 2 seconds to break if you send them something that, just doesn't make any sense to them. Because we need to say, okay, we trust Alex to come to us with a deal that really, let's say, floats our boat and fits our mandate and fits our pipeline and fits, what we're looking to allocate capital wise here. So that's one thing. I think another thing, just outside of what I do, but I think in regards to life in general, when it comes to building trust, is being there when you're not actually needed, or being there
Yes.
even when you're not asking for something. And we had a big thing of that sort of back end of 2023, sort of November, December 2023, especially in London. It was quite a difficult time for developers and investors. No one was really investing. The market wasn't in the best place. So no one was looking to hire into their teams. No one was really looking at pitch decks or anything like that because the kind of mindset was, well, we'll wait until the new year and see whether things progress, and we'll press the play button then. So I could have easily just buggered off and gone on holiday and just enjoyed my life because there's no work really there for me. But what I found is I was still having these meetings with people, and I said, look, I know you don't need me now. And I know, I can't necessarily add any value, but I'm here if you need anything. And whenever that time comes, then, just jump on the phone. But it's just knowing that I'm here, right?
I
It was
agree.
only, it was only until 6 months later or so that people were giving me a call and saying, I really remember you coming to us and saying, I know you're in a difficult situation right now, but look, we're here if you need us. And people were calling me. I wasn't calling them. And
Yeah,
when they were
yeah,
ready,
yeah, yeah.
and that was amazing. And another thing as well is what I would say is, and I would just very quickly advise anyone who is definitely older and more experienced than me is, if you have a passion when it comes to real estate or hospitality, whatever it may be, and you have 25 years, 30 years experience, really try and help and encourage people at a younger age to get into the industry and share your knowledge. I've had people I've got a really good friend of mine, Merzat. He founded Eden Group and Lock Hotels, and I meet up with him maybe every couple of months. We sit down, have a coffee. He shares his knowledge with me. He shares his experience with me. He's never asked me for anything, and vice versa, really. And well, to be honest with you, I don't actually know what. Maybe he just likes me. I don't know. We'll see. But like, I get so much value from him. There's another guy, Neil Gunnan, as well. I see him for a drink every once in a while. He's been in hotels for 25 years, and just giving people of the younger generation your time over a coffee, 40 minutes, whatever it may be, it goes. I'm forever grateful for
I
those.
agree. I agree. I had this several times in my career, and I fully agree. It's all about that again, human connection. You know, this is the most important piece of every business, to be honest.
But not everything's transactional, you know?
Yeah,
Not everything needs to be transactional. I think that's where the trust really comes in, because it's just showing, okay, we're actually sharing the same passions
yeah,
here. We
yeah.
have the same ideas. And then maybe something comes out of it later down the line. But I really have the ethos of help other people within the industry. Don't necessarily think transactional all the time. I mean, we're working with a client right now for free. We're not actually, and that's the only reason being is, the person that's founded it has been in hotel operations for about 30 years. And when I was speaking to her in the first meeting that we had, she was telling me how she helped a lot of hotels out during COVID when they were struggling for free herself. And I was thinking, wow, let me give something back.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's important.
Amazing. I was just gonna ask you about what advice. So you answered already. You answered this question already. But maybe into building relationships. If somebody really starting in that field in a real estate, what sort of advice you would give into that piece? Like, what sort of things they should think about before actually approaching a partner or building a relationship?
I think it depends what level we're talking about. I think I could just in case you have any younger people listening to this podcast, maybe they're doing real estate at university, for example, and they want to get into the space. What I would say to them is, LinkedIn is there for a reason. I feel like it's great posting about, I've just been on holiday and now I'm back and ready for action, stuff like this. And it's great. And I think it's a good space to share your successes and often share your failures as well, just so you can give people a bit of a learning curve to go off. But at the end of the day, LinkedIn's about connecting with people. And
I
I think
agree.
at whatever level, there's almost that thing of actually, I'm a little bit scared because I've connected with this investment director or I've connected with this person that's been in the game for quite a long time. I wouldn't dare drop him a message. And I promise you, I promise you, unless the person is not a nice person, but most people in our industry are, and we love to help others, just drop someone a message and say, look, I'm at university, or maybe I want a career change. I've had a look at what you're doing at your company or in your career, and I'm really I'm really excited about what you've done, and I'd love to learn from you. Would you be able to jump on a call for 30 minutes or grab a coffee? I almost guarantee you they're going to say yes, unless they're super busy. But then, if they're super busy, plan it for in a month's time or in 2 months' time, but they're going to say yes. So I think people are kind of automatically a little bit scared. Maybe there's a sense of imposter syndrome there that, oh, I've just connected with this person on LinkedIn. Some people are scared to actually connect with people on LinkedIn because they think, well, they're not going to add me back. But just drop them a message. I mean, what
Yeah.
are they going to say? No. I mean, if they say no, then fine, maybe it's not the right time, and then you find someone else to speak to. But that's the only way, that's one of the best ways to learn, and kind of going off piece, but only because, I think I've kind of come up with a bit of a cheat code to get people into the industry from university into a grad scheme or whatever that may be. And it's kind of common sense, but it's very, very valuable, I would say, from my end. Right. So say you just graduated university and you want to get a grad scheme at, I don't know, Savile, CBRE, maybe you want a junior investment analyst position, but you don't necessarily know how to answer questions that come up in an interview, or you don't know how to attack, the financial modeling that comes with it, or you don't know what the process is going to be. So you're kind of struggling and you're a bit nervous. The best way to go about it is, and here's the cheat code for anyone that's listening, okay, go on LinkedIn, go into the company that you want to apply for a grad scheme for, let's say, or a junior investment analyst position. Find someone that's already a grad or a junior investment analyst. Connect with them, drop them a message. Congratulations, saw that you've got into this grad scheme. or congratulations on your new junior analyst position. I'm actually thinking about doing this myself and applying next year or whenever it comes up. Could we have a coffee and discuss, what research you did beforehand? How did the interview process go for you?
Nice.
If you did a financial modeling test or something like that, what kind of things came up? Obviously, you don't have to tell me exact word for word, but you're getting then basically a manual as to how to do your research and get this job, or who can I connect with there that might give me a better chance of getting a grad position. And this person's going to say, wow, okay, that was a really nice message. And yeah, I'm actually feeling quite chuffed as well that I got a grad position too. Of course, I'll help you out. And to me, I've told people to do that before, and I've got, I mean, touch wood, I think so far 100% success rate on that. I'm just saying.
Nice, nice.
So a
I'm really happy to hear that. And
little bit of wisdom just out of
I love that. I love that. And also to, have this courage to reach out and add and speak out and to support that. I just had my recent episode with Edward Clark. Shout out. He's helping also people to find jobs with his recruitment company. And he had a
I
very
used
similar
to
advice.
I used to work with Ed, so me and Ed are very good friends.
All
He's a
right. Good. Shout out to Ed.
He's a lovely guy, and I think the reason why he's doing so well at the minute is kind of what we mentioned before. He's just bloody passionate
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
industry
yeah,
and
yeah,
what he
yeah.
does. And that comes across so much. And I think you get so much further when there's a level of transparency there, there's a level of honesty.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that comes down to the trust thing as well, is
yeah.
not hiding. We say to clients as well. I mean, sometimes we speak to clients and they're not ready to speak to investors, or sometimes it's the other way around. I had one the other day. It was a hotel development in Japan that we were looking at. I got sent the pitch decks, got sent the financial models, had about 3 meetings with them, and I just turned around to them literally a few days ago and I said, look, it's just not something that I feel I can add the most value to you. And I think that comes back to the start where a broker would just turn around and say, yeah, we'll take it. And then they'll just fire it off into the wilderness and see what comes back. We're pretty open in saying, I can't add as much value as I'd like to here, or provide you a service that I could. I'm happy to give you some pointers, maybe point you in the right direction with someone
Yeah.
that can. But you get so much that develops the trust as well, because I'm not BSing anyone. I'm saying, look, I can't help you right now. Maybe later down the line, I can help you and let's stay in touch. But people appreciate that so much more than saying yes
Agree,
and
agree.
not delivering on anything.
Agree. And make that message a voice note, like Edward said, like send a voice note. I love that. Keep
It's a
the
good
human
one.
part
It's
live.
a good tip.
Nice. Great, Alexander. I love this advice. And we're almost in the end, but before we close, something really also interesting for me to understand from your perspective, the future, what's coming ahead, especially in your space. Looking ahead, what is really exciting you about the real estate future?
I think, I mean, once again, we've touched upon a few of these as well. There's that sort of how are we, what does the future look like for integrating all of this AI and tech into the operational side or the underwriting? I think that kind of merge between, with that kind of merge of hospitality between asset classes. For me, I really, really love that. And I'm sure it's been happening ever so slowly, but we've seen such a big rise in, once again, how can we integrate sort of the hospitality aspects into PBSA, so student accommodation or residential and something like that? And that's kind of funny. I was in London the other day, and well, I mean, I'm in London pretty much all the time, but I was walking on the street, and on one side of me, I saw a ton of Victorian residential building, and to my left was a giant crane and like a 20-story glass mirror. And I was thinking, there's such a difference here, but they're both providing exactly the same thing. I mean, granted, one with a lot more amenities and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, they're both providing the exact same thing. They're giving people a roof over their heads, and they're both residential units, right? But the difference is night and day, and that's happened rather quickly. So for me, it's exciting to see, well, in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, or however long, are these new skyrise buildings then going to become out of date? And that's kind of exciting for me. I don't have kids, but in the future, if I have kids, are they going to tell their kids like, oh, you know, you have it easy now, but back in my day, I used I used to live in a 20-story glass building and we had a gym and co-working and a golf simulator. Look what you have now. Like,
Yeah.
You don't know what it was like. And I I grew up in a council estate in Rochdale, so I kind of feel lucky anyway, getting to do what I do and speak to the people that I speak to, and go and see all of these incredible buildings and developments, and speak to people that are kind of at the cutting edge of what's happening in modern day real estate. I'm so fortunate and lucky to do that, right? But I'm not going to forget, I used to grow up in a council house in kind of a dodgy area of Manchester. So it's kind of seeing how that's developed to what real estate is at now. I find it fascinating. I'm always thinking, what's next? That's
Yeah,
what.
yeah, that's really, really good to hear. Really good to hear, and I agree with you. It is exciting, especially with again the good part with the AI. They can do a lot and can change a lot. There's so much going on in that space, of course, and I hope everyone, take an advantage of that because there's still a lot of companies are, scared to use it or don't want to implement some part, and it can save a lot of time for everyone. So happy to hear from your perspective. Before we end the show, I cannot close it without my question, my famous question. What does level up means to you?
Well, I mean, I was going to. It's quite funny that you say that, but I was literally going to say, like, we can't end this podcast without thanking you in regards to what you're doing at the moment with this podcast. Because being able to, I think I actually dropped you a LinkedIn message kind of thanking you for what you're doing as well, because to shine a light on people in the industry, and there could be people on the operational side, on the tech side, to be able to give someone a platform and sort of present what they're building at the moment and what they're proud to build, and giving them that spotlight. And the way that you do these podcasts are with such grace and such patience, and asking some excellent questions. I think you're really doing a great service to not just hotels, but I would say hospitality and tech as well. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, actually. Thank you for that. I didn't expect that
No,
comment. Thank
yeah,
you.
I
I
really,
do
really.
appreciate you. It was really I love to hear that, and I really feel hopefully achieving my vision of the podcast is to shed light on the hidden stories and my goal of the podcast. So thank you for
Well,
the
you're
great
doing
feedback.
a,
Thanks, I appreciate it.
doing a cracking job, mate.
I love to do it. Thank you. It was really nice to have you, Alexander. I'm sure
Pleasure.
we should have another one in the future. We'll see how these things evolve. I wish you all the best with what you're doing. I know you've been also doing some great jobs, especially in your space.
Thank
You
you. You
see
too.
you. Bye.
Yeah. Every conversation can and will elevate you. It's where real talk meets real growth.